Samope, Sampadia, Chimafidi non cotu, era one radio. Samope, Jumpadia, Chimafidi non cotu, era one radio. Oh, and you pumpchima, Asam pumpchima. Era one, Samope, Sampadia, Chimafidi non cotu, era one radio. Samope, Jumpadia, Chimafidi non cotu, era one radio. Oh, and you pumpchima, Asam pumpchima. Era one,
Good evening, Era One radio listeners and viewers all over the world. I want to start our broadcast tonight with a question. Are you going through any temptation that you think is beyond your strength? Have you found any way of escape? And do you think your strength is small enough not to carry you through? We have a good news for you tonight. Tonight, we're going to go to part 2 of our discussion, and I'm sure my co-host, Pastor Nisaba Akron, and possibly Uncle Max will help us to go further. Last week, we started a series where we looked at sources of temptation. What actually brings about temptation, or who instigates temptation? Is it from our own whims and caprices, or is it somebody who tempts? Is it always the devil who is responsible for this? We'll continue the second part today. And of course, we are broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and also Modern Ghana Radio. If you want to call in, which I do highly encourage, the number to call in is 240-280-2633. Or if you want to text, it's 510-931-0946. I'm honored again and again to have Reverend Pastor Nisaba Akron, a lawyer by profession, an IT man, a pastor. I mean, name it, he has all. And Uncle Max will also be joining us, provided the Doomsaw connection in Ghana allows it to be possible. So he's going to join us. And as I speak now, I think he's going to join us. All right. So we're going to go to the part 2 of our discussion, as I mentioned, and probably Uncle Max will join us. Nisaba, any updates from your end?
I'm happy that we can meet again and bring God's good news to God's good people.
Amen.
So let's see what further goodies God has in store for his people.
Amen.
And I'm excited to be a channel and an instrument God has chosen to use to bless his good people. Thank you, Dr. Boyson.
You're welcome. Amen. Thank you very much. You are a channel, you are a conduit, and you are a blessing. And we are honored to have you here to share with us the immeasurable knowledge that God has given you. We thank God. Uncle Max has also been able to join us. Uncle Max, can we hear you? Or do you hear us? Can we hear you speak?
I think he's still having challenges.
Still in the frozen state?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we hear something.
I can hear you, Dr. Boyson.
Oh, okay. How are you doing, sir?
I can hear you guys.
All right.
Thank you. We are glad you've made it.
We are managing as Pastor Akron has observed. So am I.
Thank you.
Is this still the Doomsaw problem? I think Uncle Max is frozen. I think you are frozen. Yeah, just get yourself a microwave and put yourself into.
Yes, hasn't gone. Tonight we are lucky.
I think the internet problem in Ghana is not Doomsaw. It's the internet problem.
Is the internet?
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
We don't have enough bandwidth.
You should be seeing me now.
Yeah, we can see you. We can hear you.
We see you. Yeah, we see you. And I think your kind of speech comes a little later, but we see you. And speaking about these doom sorting, there was a guy that. Hello, can you hear us? I think you're hearing us. Or you do?
I should do it. It's
Fiber
a
problem,
fiber
huh?
connection.
And the man who helped to bring the fiber optics to you is also dead. Oh, the
Yes,
other
I
man,
can hear you.
Mr. Mensah, Dr. Mensah.
I can hear you.
All right, okay. Well, we'll continue. So last week, Uncle Max wasn't here, but we started the series on sources of temptation, and we asked the question: who or what actually leads or helps or contributes to the temptation that we go through in life? Because the Bible says I think we looked at 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and we emphasized on the 13, where we did read that there's never been any temptation that is not common to man. But then whatever we face, there's nothing new under the sun. So whatever temptation we're going through is common to us. And God will not allow us to go through something that is beyond our capability. Either he will make us stand and fight it, or he will provide a way of escape. So that was the gist of what we started last week. And since Uncle Max was not here, Nisaba, if you don't mind, I will let you give us just a little recap of last week. We're not going too back. I mean, we did the subjects and a few things, but I want us to revisit the text structure that the author used to expose this this scripture. I mean, Uncle Nisaba, if you don't mind, if you can just give us a little recap as we bring Uncle Max to speed on that.
Yeah, I mean, the author made, Paul here, made some claims. And he first gave us examples which will serve as illustrations of the kinds of temptations that might come our way. If you read from, you read 1 Corinthians chapter 10, from verse 1 all the way to verse 12, you see Paul giving instances of what the children of God went through and how some behaved and how they ended up. And he made the point that the experiences recounted there are to serve as examples for us. And then he made his concluding remark in verse 13 when he said, "There is no temptation that has overtaken you, but such as is common to man. And God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted above that which you can bear. But he with the temptation will also make a way of escape." This is Paul talking and giving us the idea of what temptation is and what our attitude towards temptations should be. And so for us, one of the things we want to dwell on is to see when we deal with temptation, when we are confronted with and by temptation, what should we do? How are we to look at the situation we find ourselves in? And what checklist, if possible, should we have in order to really create and adopt the sort of mental frame that will help us to positively deal with the situation that one could call a temptation. So, Dr. Boyson, that's basically where we are, and that should be the jump-off point for us today.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for that insightful summary. And before we do the jump-off, Uncle Max wasn't here last week, so we just want to piggyback or even glean his mind on the difference between temptation and testing. I want his viewpoint on those two technicalities when we talk about temptation and testing? What is the difference, and what are the similarities? Like we used to, they make us do in biology, 5 similarities and 5 differences. What are some of the similarities, or what basically what's the difference between temptation and testing? I think Uncle Max is frozen again.
Okay, let's go on.
I think it's frozen. All right. So today
I
our
can
goal.
hear you guys.
Oh, you can hear us? Yeah. Did you hear my question?
I heard your question, yes.
Okay.
To answer it, I would make reference to a point Pastor Akon made last week. Yeah. But I want to expand that a bit. He brought in the idea of mode or tendency. That when you face a situation, it has a potential to you back or to move you forward. Yeah. It has a potential to uplift you or to downgrade you.
Mm-hmm.
If the greater potential is to uplift you, we call it a test. But to me, I think they are one and the same. A temptation is a test, and a test is a temptation. It's simply a question of where you draw the datum line as to where the point of neutrality is. If the outcome of the temptation is to uplift you, or the test is to uplift you, then we call it a test. But we should note that wherever your datum point is relative to how far you have traveled in your life. And yes, you can go back. You can go. But every temptation is also a test. Because if you withstand the temptation, it does mean that you have strengthened certain fibers in your being to be able to withstand the temptation next time round. So there will have been a positive outcome. If it is a test and you fail the test, that also doesn't necessarily mean you stay at the same place because you have failed the test. And that has a tendency, as it were, to pull you back below your datum point, where you start. Yeah. So a lot depends also on one's attitude. Some people will be to redouble their efforts, and every setback has a potential to strengthen certain parts in you. In the same way, every success has the potential to weaken certain parts in you. Because sometimes with success, you become complacent, you become lazy, you lose focus, and you drift into you drift off course from the trajectory that we're on.
All right. Thank you very much, Uncle Max.
My answer to the question is basically they are one and the same. Every temptation is a test. Say again?
Oh yeah. I was listening. Yeah, yes. I think the internet kind of takes.
I'm saying every test is a temptation, and every temptation. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, it looks as if the internet is a little bit spotty, so every now and then we miss a bit of your stuff. But yeah, I think we are on the same length. Every temptation, has a connotation of testing, but then one brings you down and one promotes you, just like we go to school and they give us a test to take. I mean, we frown, we kick, and we complain, all that, but it's meant to take us forward. If you are in class 1, you have to go to class 2. And the only way your teacher can find out whether you've assimilated the material is to test you and make sure while he or she was teaching, you were listening, because some of us, we played too much whilst we were in school. So we didn't listen. When exams came, then we were fretting and pushing things around. Anyway, all right, so let's move. Anisaba, I want us to take a little swipe at some atomicities, some proposition. We're going to look at the role of God, the role of man, and then the so-called tempter, whoever that person is. So maybe you lead us in the atomic aspect of what Paul was talking about, that God will not allow anything that is beyond us. He's a faithful God. And then we go into the aspect of man, where man also is the one that goes to the temptation. But then God weighs us whether we can bear it, whether he needs to give us a way of escape, which he does, or he makes us stand and fight. And I think Bob Marley rightly said that he who fights and runs away will come back and fight another day. So whatever it is, you will meet it again. So Nisaba, you ready to take us through some atomicities?
Yeah, Dr. Boyson. The reason for doing an exercise like this, looking at a whole text as a one big proposition, and then zooming in on the parts of that proposition, which means you look at the sub propositions that together constitute the one big proposition. What that does is it helps you to really accept or reject the proposition as presented. And so you do that by, again, looking at the sub propositions, which the technical term is the atomic propositions. A proposition is nothing but a sentence that makes a statement. And such a sentence has value. So every proposition has value. The value can be true or false. Now, one of the things we have to understand, when you take a big proposition, and you break it into its atomic parts, what one has to understand that if any of the atomic parts proves to be false, then the whole giant proposition also will be false. So when you take the text as it is, the claim, and therefore the proposition that Paul has given in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13, and I'll read it together if it's okay, Dr. Boyson.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
He says, "There have no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that which you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, so that you may be able to bear it." Dr. Boyson, I broke this giant proposition into its atomic propositions, its atomic parts, and I came up with 7 propositions, which means each of these 7 atomic propositions can have a value of yes and no.
Okay.
Yes or no, right? Now, if you have 7 propositions and each proposition can have a yes or no value, then the way you go about it is to take the exponent, right? So that will take you to 2 raised to the power 7. 2 standing for the yes and no values. And then the 7 being the number of atomic propositions. And so if you take you raise 2 to the power 7, you come up with 128. Dr. Boyson, what this means is that there are 128 possible ideas that could be gleaned from this one verse.
This is mathematical Bible. Thank you.
Right? And that makes this text exciting. 128 possible ideas. But Dr. Boyson, this is the deal. Any sub-proposition or atomic proposition that proves to be false will render the whole verse false.
So it's like the all or nothing law.
Yes. That is the nature of propositions. And it enables or helps the individual appreciator to either accept the proposition as it is
or reject it.
So these are the 7 atomic propositions I came up with. A temptation has overtaken you. The temptation is common to man. God is faithful. God will not allow you to be tempted above which you can bear. God will make a way of escape. God will make a way with the temptation. God will make a way of escape with the temptation. And you can bear the temptation. These are the 7 atomic propositions.
Major ones.
Now, how then do we really look at this and come up with the ideas? Dr. Boyson, what I did today, I will share it. But first, if you take the possibility, a temptation has overtaken you, true or false?
Yes.
If it is true, the temptation is common to man. Is it true or is it false? God is faithful. Is it true? Is it false? God will not allow unbearable temptations. Is it true? Is it false? God will make a way of escape with the temptation. Is that true or is it false? You can bear the temptation. Is that true? Is that false? So these are the possibilities. So Dr. Boyson, I created a flow chart that I will go through down the line, getting to, I think before that I will have Uncle Mas to share his ideas. Then we'll look at the flow chart and then help us to really position ourselves in the face of temptation and know what to do and what not to do, right? What things you can assume are in place and what things you can assume are not in place. And that will help you to make the right decision in the face of temptation. Over to you, Dr. Boyson.
All right, let me take a quick jingle here because it looks as if we lost Uncle Max for now. So after the jingle, if he doesn't join, you may have to continue without permission.
Chimafidi non kotu era one radio. Samupe jumpe dietia. Chimafidi non kotu era one radio. Oh, ayum pamchima. Chimtu asam pamchima. Chimtu agratum chima. Era one, yebo yung pangkua.
Yes, the jingle rightly said it. You are with us on Era One Radio. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and also Modern Ghana Radio. This is a live broadcast, today being the 6th day of June 2024. As I said last week, we are in the half of the year journey. So whatever you have to do, like Judas, do it quickly and let it happen. Tonight, we are looking at the part 2 of sources of temptation. And before the break, Nisaba was wowing us with the atomicity. And I told you, this man will take a simple verse in the Bible and he will make it complex, and then he will have mercy on us and he will bring it down again and explain. That's what he tries to do. He just tries to mess up with my mind. Uncle Max is back. There's been a little bit of challenge on the other side since the internet, the Doomsaw thing is not really working, but we'll make do with what we have. All right, so Nisabam explained to us that you can have exponents in the Bible. Wow, this man is something. Oh, he just took those yes and no's and expanded them, gave them exponential values, and told us the 7 alternatives, the 7 propositions. When you take the yes and the no aspect of it, you get 2 raised to the power 7. Some of you, when we talk about exponential growth and all that, you don't understand because you were running away from math. It's just 2 times 2, 7 times. You multiply 2 by 2, 2 by 2, you get 7. And so it's, to make it simple, the mathematicians say just put the 2 down, put 7 up there, upper, what they call uppercase, and it comes out to be 2 7 times. That's 128. So you can have 128 broken down atomic sentences. I don't know if Uncle Max heard what Nisaba was saying, but maybe, I don't know what. Uncle Max, do you have anything to say? I don't know how much of what you heard before your system took you out, but if you want to say something quickly before we turn over to Nisaba.
No, I think I'd better just listen to catch up. I just heard you talking about 2 to the power 7.
Yeah, I think your system is better now. Thank God, it's way better. So I'll let Nisaba wild us through again. And so this is not an interview. Please note this is not an interview where I'm hosting an interview. We are having a discussion. So Uncle Max, come in anytime. If you think the man is bullying me, just come in and rescue me, because last week you were not here, so you don't know what happened to me. So anytime you feel he's doing his stuff, just come in and rescue me. All right, Nisaba, let's go on to that topic.
From the topic we are talking about, I know that even if we try to bully you, it will be no more than your shoulders can stand.
That's I need to get a shoulder pad.
I like that, Uncle Max.
Ghana, they saw your jacket. They saw your jacket and they put shoulder pad. But this one, I don't think I have shoulder pad. So you might be my shoulder absorber. So all right, so we are all. All right, I'll take it. I mean, I'm sure God is going to give me a way of escape so I can handle it. All right, let's roll. All right, let's hear you, Nisaba.
Yeah, so Dr. Boyson, when you look at a test like this, the question is, what is the end goal? If you take an individual faced with the temptation, the question is, what is the end goal? Right? The end goal here, according to Paul, will be to be able to bear it.
Okay.
That's the bottom line. You want to be able to bear it. And Paul now says, have this mindset about you, with you, concerning the situation that confronts you, that you properly can say is a temptation. Is it something that is getting you to do something that you know you shouldn't do? Because that's what a temptation will be, right? Paul says, if you are faced with a temptation, get it at the back of your mind that it is common to man.
Mm-hmm. You are not alone.
You are not the first.
You're the last.
You will not be the last. It is common to man. And I like what Uncle Max said. We have to understand that the fact that it is common to man doesn't mean if Uncle Max can bear it, then I can also bear it.
Yeah, it depends on individual strengths.
That is what we have to hammer on. And this is where God comes in. Paul wants us to understand that despite the fact that the temptation, the situation you find yourself in is common to man, God is involved. That is the good news here. But the issue is, if we look at the triangle in terms of the characters involved in that phenomenon you call a temptation, you have the tempter, the one who is doing the tempting. Then let's say you have the temptee. Yes, if there is a term like this, the person undergoing or experiencing
the temptation.
But Paul also brings in God as a character to make up this triangle.
Or the referee.
And therefore, we have to look at the text and look at the roles that each character in the triangle plays. If we take the tempter, his is to tempt you, the temptee. That is his role. To goad you into doing what you need or you know you shouldn't do. Then you, the person,
the temptee,
being tempted, the temptee, what is your role in the matter? Your role is one to be the one being tempted. So you bear the temptation. 2, you are the one to take advantage of the way of escape that God creates or makes available. God will not take advantage of the way he creates for you. You would have to. The third thing, or actually the fourth thing, is what I will call implied variable rather than explicitly stated variable. Paul makes us to understand the tempter, the temptee, you are the one being taken by the temptation. You have to take advantage of the way of escape. You have to bear the temptation and what have you. However, we also have to understand that whether you take the way of escape or not is on you, the temptee. Whether you fail or succeed in bearing the temptation is also on you, the temptee. Now let's look at the roles of God in this matter. Paul would have us to understand that God's role in this triangle, right, is to be faithful to whatever his role is. 2, he has to weigh your strength. Now, before he can, he weighs your strength, and then he also weighs the magnitude of the temptation. And once he has satisfied himself that the magnitude of the temptation is not bigger or way more than the ability of the temptee to deal with it, he allows it. That's why Paul said, God will not suffer you to be tempted. The word suffer is Old English, means God will not allow you to be tempted above that which you can bear. So if we go back and we now take stock of what we've said, God weighs that this temptation that Robert Akron is facing is not a temptation that Uncle Max has faced or will face. Because Uncle Max's strength or ability per this particular temptation may be more than mine. So God weighs my ability, Robert Akron's ability, and then weighs the strength of the temptation.
Okay.
And then he satisfies himself that I have what it takes. Now, the Bible said, then God allows it. Not only does he allow it, Paul said, he also creates or makes a way of escape for you, the temptee. God makes a way for me, Robert Akron, the temptee.
Nisaba, let me interrupt. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm going a little bit out of the text. Permit me to do it. Let's revisit the Garden of Eden, where our first parents goofed off. In that instant where God had actually told them not to eat certain tree or fruit or whatever it is, in that instant, what was their way of escape? If we just go back, Nisaba, you can, join, or Uncle Mas can also join in. It's just open.
Uncle Mas, would you like to take a start first?
Okay, yes, please. I would propose a slightly different framework. I like the triangular approach, which is how our universe is constructed anyway. Everything comes in a tripartite form. But Lisa Bang, I'd like to ask to revisit this from the perspective of your legal experience and framework.
Okay.
Yeah. We talk of the laws of God, or the laws of man, but we don't often acknowledge the laws of God.
Okay.
Which have come down to us as commandments, amongst other things, and in many instances operates in autopilot mode. God is around and his laws take care of business for him without him having to put in a personal appearance. So in this instance where you've got the tempter, the temptee, and the referee. Yeah, as it were. I would like to substitute the words means, motive, and opportunity.
Okay.
Or rather, motive, opportunity, and means. Okay. In which God provides the means, in the sense that all we are and have and can do comes from God. Okay, so we are well able, according to how far we have advanced along our developmental path, to do certain things. And according to the means that we have, and this is where the judgment of God comes in, where he does not allow more than we can bear. Okay, because that's another universal truth which has to do with thesis and antithesis.
Okay.
But I'll come to that in a minute. So we have varying degrees of means according to how far we have traveled and what talents we have developed and so on. Those are the means. Then the devil provides an opportunity for us to go off the beaten track, for us to fail, for us to do the wrong thing. Yeah, this is where crimes get committed. If you only get a crime if those three things come together, the means, the motive, and the opportunity. So what the devil does is provides opportunity. And then the choice comes down to us as to what our motive is. So for somebody who is very committed to God, that motive of developing a relationship with God and working with God and so on will be such that the opportunity will not impact on them. They will not be tempted because their mind is focused on God rather than on the self. For those whose motive isn't so pure, then they become vulnerable to the opportunity of wrongdoing and so on that is presented. So, according to how strong their motive is, or what direction that motive lies in, will they succumb or will they pass the test? Yeah. But God has given us his laws. He has given us the escape route. He has given us his commandments. He told Adam, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that. So the motivation was built into us, but it is up to us whether we choose to follow the correct motive or motivation, or we allow ourselves to be diverted in a different direction.
So if I hear you well, Uncle, you are re-emphasizing that God actually made a way for Adam and Eve. They decided not to follow it.
Exactly. That way is built into the commandments, is built into the scriptures, is built into nature, okay, where we are told what we should do and what we should not do. And in the Christian context, we have those two commandments: love thy God and love thy neighbor. And if we do those two things, it takes care of everything.
Everything. That's true.
Dr. Boyson, if I may come in, unless Uncle Mas, I think finish, and then I may ask.
There was one other thing I wanted to touch on, which I call thesis and antithesis. And that really hinges on the fact that everything we do, okay, doesn't come easy. It encounters resistance. We have to work to move forward. And this is a universal law that when you have a force, you will also encounter resistance. There's thesis and antithesis. Everything we do generates, if you like, a back force. The electrical engineers will call it back EMF.
Action and reaction.
Yes. And it is often in that reaction that we think we have an opportunity to cut corners and to skip around the object, the objection or the resistance, and do something that we know we shouldn't do in order to get past the resistance that we are facing. And that resistance often is just an externalization of our own internal resistance, because we are not fully aligned with God's purpose for us.
Wow.
So that pitch, and you know, if you have a boat, a ship going through water presents a lot of resistance. And when the boat is trying to go forward, it will inevitably generate waves, which will make the boat kind of corkscrew. This is the way of nature. Nothing ever travels in a straight line. Okay. Even light doesn't do that. In the presence of gravity, it bends. Okay. So everything has a circular kind of motion. And we forget this. We've been taught to think that we have to go in a straight line to get wherever it is we want to go. And we forget that our forward movement is going to generate eddy currents, which will tend to pull us off course a little bit. And we don't make allowance for that. So we encounter more resistance than we should.
Wow. The physicist has spoken. Mr. Lawyer Historian, adios.
Dr. Boyson, I like the way Uncle Max has brought physics into the equation. I like that. I like that. But Dr. Boyson,
yes, sir.
You asked specifically about Adam and Eve, right? And when you look at Adam and Eve, especially Eve, because she was actually the focus of the text, you realize that Eve fell, one, because the Bible said she desired wisdom. And she had gotten information that eating the fruit against what God had said would get her the wisdom she desired. Now, when you go back and you read the text carefully, you realize that God said certain things. And when you stack it against what Eve said concerning what God has said, you realize that Eve took out certain things God had said and added certain things God had not said. So the question becomes, did Eve fall because of confusion? Did Eve have all the full facts? And then we can also ask ourselves, in the face of the temptation I'm experiencing, do I have all the full facts? Because, as Uncle Mark said, which he properly termed motive, which actually will be my willpower, the choice I make because of what I desire as my goal, right? These are the issues that one has to deal with a test like this. And one of them, and we haven't touched on it, but the Bible makes us to understand that, yeah, as we said, God allows, but before he allows, as we said, he will make sure our strength vis-a-vis the task or temptation will align or will match, will be compatible. And then he allows, and then he creates a way. But Dr. Boyson, what also we must put across is that once God allows, he creates the way, he does not interfere with the temptation.
That is where, I mean, I want him to interfere again. I mean, I know he's made a lot of provision.
But that's what we have to understand. God does not interfere in the temptation. All that he does, he weighs your strength, he weighs your ability, he weighs the strength of the temptation, convinces himself that you are able. Now he allows it. He creates a way.
That's why I feel like he should have smacked David's face or back to just get him on the
It's on the tempting now. And that is where maybe we need to hammer. Because that's where Christians, I think, we get it wrong.
Okay.
You understand? Because we think that God coming through for us means that, as Paul said, he makes a way of escape. Therefore, the escape there, that way of escape there means that we will escape the temptation. That's not what Paul is saying.
So providing the way of escape and you escaping are two different things.
They are two different things. He will not interfere, one. Two, escaping, therefore, depends on your will power. Do you know what the consequences are?
Most of it we do.
Do you know is your motivation so overriding such that the motivation literally overwhelms the willpower? Are you getting me? You know, as you said, this should not be done. but I want that. That is my goal. And getting my goal requires me to set and put aside what I know I should not do. At that point, it becomes my choice. And my choice is a function of my willpower. So, though Paul didn't state these things in the text, these are the assumptions that we must make and must make sure are in place so we will know what our options are. God will not interfere with the temptation. Despite the fact that he makes the way of escape, he does not interfere with the temptation. And the fact that he creates the way of escape does not mean you will escape. That is why, Dr. Boyson, it's proper for us to look at the way Paul puts it. Paul says in verse 13, he says, that ye may. Whereas he said, God will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able. Authoritative language. But will, with the temptation, another authoritative language. Right? Then, as to your bearing the temptation, he uses may, permissive. Are we getting the picture clear? So God will do what God has to do. And one of the things God will do is not to interfere with the temptation. And what you will have to do is to take advantage of the way of escape that God makes available. How do you do that? You check your goal, you check your willpower. If your goal overwhelms your willpower, you will fall. If your willpower outweighs your goal, you will overcome. But all will hinge on what do you know are the consequences.
Wow. Well said, Nisaba. Thank you very much. On that note of willpower, let me go to Uncle Max. Uncle Max, Nisaba rightly said it, that God is going to give us the way of escape. He will give us, or he will not allow us, the word sufferer means he will not allow us to go through something that is beyond our capability. At the end of the whole show, at the end of the day, it boils down to our willpower. And I like to use these examples of Joseph and David. Joseph had a strong willpower to overcome Potiphar's wife. David, not so much. He wanted to stand and look until he called for Bathsheba. So, Uncle Max, how do we increase our willpower to be able to withstand decrease our susceptibility to temptation, increase our willpower to be able to stand and take advantage of the way of escape that God has given? Because God has, like Nisaban said, God has done everything, like we used to say in Africa. Whatever Ghana needs to be enjoyed, Nkrumah has done it for us, or maybe some may disagree. But whatever needs to be done, God has provided. It's up to us to use our willpower. How do we increase our willpower to be able to withstand such temptation? Because if somebody is at the office and he feels that, okay, I'm broke, I want to add some zeros to the figures to embezzle, they can do it. But how do they have the willpower not to do it? That is the question.
Okay. Here you're talking about wound power as opposed to willpower.
Uncle Max, you have a sense of humor.
There's a meme going around at the moment. Yeah, there's a meme going around at the moment. Which contrasts two things. For example, in our context here today, you can say success is hard. Resisting temptation is hard. Choose your heart. Choose your hand.
Not a boiled egg heart.
So, yeah. So on the matter of willpower, I think we also have to bear in mind the direction in which you are applying that willpower. Because you can apply extreme willpower to do something wrong. The same way you can apply extreme willpower to do something right or to resist doing something wrong. So I think the direction is important. And unfortunately, our education system presents life back to front in a way. In school, we are given lessons before we get the test to see whether we learned the lesson. In life, we are given tests from which we either learn a lesson or we get a blessing. Or sometimes it's both. We learn the lesson, and from the lesson we get a blessing. Yeah. So with the way I believe God works is, and Pastor Akron said he will not interfere with the temptation, having given us the tools and the assessment as to whether we can handle the temptation and so on. So he will not interfere. Because if we are ready for the test, we will reap the blessings and the benefits that go with passing the test or the temptation. If we are not, then it means we were not quite ready and we have to learn the lesson. Maybe we were ready, but we applied our willpower, okay, and we did the wrong thing, or we didn't apply our willpower. We allowed ourselves to be sucked into something that we shouldn't have gone into, and so on. And there will be consequences. And from those consequences, hopefully, we will learn. We'll learn the lesson, so next time we are able to do better. The challenge with life on this planet is that very often the consequences are not immediate. They take time to arrive. Sometimes not even in the current lifetime. It may be another lifetime before the consequences arrive. And so learning the lessons or certain lessons is not easy. I often think, for example, that if our politicians understood the law of karma, the law of consequences, action and reaction, and that everything they do is recorded in the good book, for which they will have to account at some point or other, then perhaps they will be a lot more careful how they conduct their lives here on earth. But at the moment, we are not taught that there is an accounting for life. And so people think they are getting away with outsmarting their fellow human being and therefore outsmarting God. And they feel safe because often the consequences are not immediate. So what is important is that we stay focused. We stay focused on God's commandments. Love thy God and love thy neighbor as thyself. Only, I think, by focusing on these two very simple but very difficult requirements, okay, will we have the willpower to withstand whatever temptations come our way. And only by doing this will we also have the discipline to stick to our life, what do you call it? Our life's mission, okay? And deploy whatever talents and gifts we are given in the service of mankind and therefore in the service of God.
Wow.
Anything else where we focus on ourselves and, self-aggrandizement and self-promotion and so on and so forth, That doesn't work. That's a short circuit in electrical terms. And when you have a short circuit, things get burnt out.
Hey, the physicist is coming. Hey. Thank you very much, Uncle Mas. I take that as your closing remarks, unless you have something else to add. But I'm honored and privileged to have these two gentlemen spew out such knowledge. I mean, it's fantastic, fantabulous for the knowledge we share here. This is a teaching platform. This is not where we are going to come and say somebody is going to die tomorrow or so and so is going to win the election. So far, I've been waiting for our prophets to come out and tell us who is going to win the 2024 election, because we are about 5 months away, and so far we haven't heard anything. And Trump has been indicted on 34 counts, and we don't know whether he's going to come back. We haven't heard any of our prophets say anything, but here we teach what needs to be taught. This is a teaching platform where we give you the nuggets of life. You make your decision. Everything we teach here is applicable. We don't just take anything and say, okay, we're just going to do it because we want to waste your 1 hour. Everything we say is applicable. Temptation and testings are all part of life. If you are in the office and you are thinking about embezzling money or whatever you want to do, yes, the temptation has come, but God has already made escape. That whatever you are doing, is it going to be a blessing to you or is it going to be a curse to the nation? That is what we're trying to teach. So when we come here, the 1 hour we spend here is worth spending. On that note, I'm going to go to Nisaban to give us his closing remarks, and then we'll wrap up for the night. Nisaban, over to you, sir.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Boyson. Let me do this flow chart and then we can go. Whenever you are faced with a temptation, the question is it a temptation? If it is not a temptation, forget it. If it is a temptation, ask yourself, is it common to man? If it is not, then that temptation is not meant for you. If it is common to man, that temptation may be meant for you. The next thing is, has God allowed it? If no, that temptation is not meant for you. If yes, then you have what it takes to handle it. If you have what it takes, next, has God created or made a way of escape? If no, that temptation is not meant for you. If God has made a way of escape, then have you taken advantage of it? If no, you will fall. That's the end of it. If yes, question, how strong is your willpower? Because Dr. Boyson, that's where the issue is. You can take advantage of the way of escape. But as Uncle Mas said, motive, opportunity,
and means.
And means. Any of the three could be one's undoing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This gentleman has well spoken, and I need not add anything. All I'm going to say is the Lord's Prayer teaches us to ask God to forgive us our trespasses and lead us not into temptation. And I think beyond that, I'm sure the Bible also says that we shouldn't add or take. So I'm not going to add or take anything. But what I will permissively ask to add is that God should give us a stronger willpower. We need that, because as for the temptation, whatever we go through is common to all men. And when yours come, which these men have rightly said, is subjective, because the temptation that Nisaba can succumb to or overcome or whatever might not be the same for Uncle Max. And if these two cannot survive the temptation, then guess what? Maybe I'll fall early, because if the mighty ones are going to fall, then I'll fall before them. So whatever temptation you go through, I mean, you need a matching or respective strength and ability to match it. Otherwise, look for some corner and escape, run. Otherwise, you will fall. Joseph was a strong man, but he said, you know what, I'm not going to stand before this woman. I will escape and I will run. David said he thought he had killed Goliath, so nothing could kill him. But it took a woman, the beauty of a woman, 2 nice-shaped breasts and a bat is what took David down. So we got to be very careful when we come into temptation. Like Pastor Corey said in the flowchart. Maybe next week we'll have to revisit the flowchart and go back again. That was something that to leave us tonight. So, Nisaba, thank you very much. I always respect your knowledge and the support that God has given you, that you liberally share. Uncle Max, thank you. Despite the doomsday and the internet being a challenge, you still stood through, because that wasn't a temptation to you. You knew you could overcome that temptation. So you came back because there was a way of escape for you to come and be with us. Thank you very much. I will see you guys again same time next week if the Lord tarries and doesn't come. If Rapture is not here by 5:59 next week, we'll meet again on the same channel. Have a good one. Enjoy. Amen. And know that God has provided a way of escape for you. He will not interfere. Know what it is and run if you have to. All right. Have a good night and see you next week. Bye-bye.
God bless you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Uncle Max.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Dr. Boyce.
Thank you.
C'est mon père, ça me fait bien tiens. Tu me fais dire non kotu, era one radio. C'est mon père, tu me fais bien tiens. Tu me fais dire non kotu, era one radio. Oh, and you come to my Chintu, asam come to my Ekratumtima, era one, yebo numpamkua.
Aden urefiana seo tumi manya eni ba aden wasua mani suwa fosunyade aden meba aden kra ya useni da sosa eni da sonsa kra eni da sonsa yo eni da sonsa ya mensubi eni da sonsa eni da suwa oh, I do. Any